I have no other ideas. Headcanons Part 3 it is, and we've got a lot to get through this time. Well, at long last, it's time for Part 3 of Headcanons. And as you saw by the intro, we've got a lot to go through. So what I'm going to do is this. We'll start with the comments that only have 1 or 2 headcanons listed, and later in the video, we'll cover comments that have up to 10 headcanons listed in them. So without further ado, let's start with the first headcanon coming from Vegelias. Diesel 10 is from the US, and given his voice in Magic Railroad, that's probably true. The next one comes from Carl Long. Ivo Hughes spent 2 years in Ireland with his sister Roisin. Next up is K&W Productions. Smudger was made out of stolen blueprints for Aeneas, which is why he derailed all the time. Next headcanons from Electric Indeed Films. Edward told all the engines the story about the Magic Railroad. Thomas then had the dream about it. And Lady is a real magic engine who gives all the engines faces. Next up is a headcanon by Melissa Spicer. Edward was built in 1896, came to the Northwestern Railway in 1915, was overhauled in 1941, and after Old Iron happened in 1952, and after his exploit happened in 1965. The next headcanon is from Michael Benitez. In the 1970s, the Northwestern Railway decided to open up more services in lesser known parts of the island, so they built the Watery, Hyde and Grassdale Miniature Railway based on the Romney Heights and Dymchurch Railway. The line opened in 1973 and runs passenger and freight services. The line has several stations: Hyde, Grassdale, Great Farquhar Lake, North Farquhar, St Elizabeth's Bay, Watery Warren, New Watery, Watery Marsh, Sodor, Gravelly and North Brendam. The line has 21 engines, 19 steam and 2 diesel, and connects to the Northwestern Railway via North Farquhar, an extension of Thomas's line. Next up is a Lego tank engine. The part of the loop line from Tidmouth to Ellsbridge was built for the Tidmouth, Knapford and Ellsbridge Railway. The other part was created when the Tidmouth, Knapford and Ellsbridge joined forces with the Wellsworth and Sudbury. The line was restored in 1967. The next headcanon is from Kara Giannis. Diesel 10 is a Class 43 warship, a class of diesels with a very short service life. He had a very unfortunate start in life. He came out the works as a revolutionary diesel, thinking himself the next big thing destined to replace the tired old steam engines, only to be scrapped within 10 years. He hates steam engines from resentment of their success, resentment that they outlived all his classmates, and resentment that the only reason he escaped the cutter's torch is to essentially serve under the steam engines as a maintenance engine, keeping the railway in working order while they get all the attention, pulling the trains and he's no longer wanted for. Next we have Jacob Underwood. Hero left Sodor for Japan after Hero the Rails happened, but when he returned he realised that all of his old mates had long since been scrapped for the World War II war effort. Many of the staff and crews he once knew had either moved on or died in the war, leaving only a small number of people who even knew Hero existed. Nice. So that's all the comments with only 1 headcanon listed covered. Thank you very much to everyone who sent in those. Those were some great headcanons with a nice variety of tone as well. So now we'll move on to comments with 3 to 7 headcanons listed, starting with Northwestern Railway. When the war happened, the logging locos were sent to Sodor, but their railway was closed due to them being troublesome, and Misty Island ain't canon in this. When the railway first opened, Great Waterton was the line that Edward first worked on, and then the mine started to run out of minerals, so it was abandoned. Diesel was sent back to the mainland and was put in a scrapyard. Eventually, another engine saved him, Paxton, and brought him to Sodor, where he now works until Topham Hatt lets him work away from the other steam engines. The next headcanons come from El Red Lider Correntino. Henry was built as a prototype of the British Railways Black 5, with wheel arches and the same firebox as Gordon, but after the Flying Kipper crash he became a normal Black 5. Emily acts as a big sister or mother figure to Donald and Douglas. After his crash, James was given his red livery, a new tender, and a front pony truck. When he came to Sodor, he was a normal Dean Goods. The next lot comes from Rav Productions. James didn't receive his extended running board until after his crash with the trucks. The reason was that it was a curve he derailed on and James's class had a problem with top heaviness, so the leading wheel was added to prevent this problem from happening again. The handle back on the Mid-Sodor Railway was an 040 and only became an 042 because of modifications the Skarloey Railway gave him. The reason behind this is because they didn't want an incident happening where he buck and bounce like Skarloey did when he first came to the railway. Duck had a huge Diesel prejudice and was honestly rude to Diesel when he first arrived. So instead of Duck being completely in the right and Diesel in the wrong, it's a grey area where both sides are to blame. Contrasting with Duck, Oliver never had a prejudice against Diesels, since when he was escaping a few kind Diesels helped him. An example includes Paxton, who was taking a train early one morning and saved Oliver, who was stuck out on the main line because he ran out of coal. So he pushed him to an abandoned yard where he would be safe, and later that day came back with coal and water to help him refuel. The next headcanons are from Matthew Pole. Lady isn't a magic engine. She was built as a Great Western Railway 101 class for a private owner on his estate. After his passing, his heirs didn't know about Lady and abandoned the estate with her forgotten. When Thomas found her in World War I after being chased by a runaway on the mainland, he brought her to Sodor and now she works on Thomas's branch line. She even has a twin sister called Kate who's based on Victor Tanzig's character. Merlin isn't the three-funnelled engine and was the original 740 Merlin. He was bought during the 30s with his brother Richard and both work mixed traffic. Bo doesn't exist. Hero came to Sodor in 1957 during the International Railway, a version of the Great Railway Show, and stayed along with Frida, Nia, Ashima and Carlos after a deputation held by the engines on the Northwestern Railway. He's also a standard gauge variant of his class, as are Ashima and Nia, and was renumbered to 51 for being the 51st engine on Sodor's roster. Diesel 10 is Joshua, an experimental engine Thomas found in a lab under an old castle with several others and brought to Sodor. Unlike the movie and series, Josh is one of the friendliest diesels on the island. Gordon doesn't retire from the Express. Pip and Emma run a different service called the King's Flyer. Rebecca operates a different express. The Wild Nor'Wester is only operated by Gordon, Frida, an engine called Princess Palatine, and the Flying Scotsman. Next lot is from Slimy Buck Studios. Gordon takes special trips that go far into the mainland, so he received a corridor tender and an extra water tender for this. He also has a rake of Gresley Teak bogie coaches which he uses for these special trains. Spencer is a prototype A4, just like Gordon is the prototype for the A1. Stephen isn't the original rocket, but is a sibling of the original, which is why the Earl was able to purchase him. Spencer has a second face under his streamlining for when he has it removed for maintenance. Next up is Ferdinand Productions 2021. The map of Sodor is a mix of HarrisonDoesArt's version and the All Engines Go version. Every episode and special of the original series, except for Railway series adaptations, all take place 16 years before the year they were released, except for The Adventure Begins, which takes place in 1925, The Royal Engine, which takes place in 1963, and Magic Railroad, which takes place in 1980. Diesel's Ghostly Christmas and all the international Big World Big Adventures episodes aren't canon in this. And all the All Engines Go stuff takes place 8 years before it was released. Series 10 takes place between the events of Thomas and the Great Railway Show and Thomas Comes Home. As a result, Thomas doesn't appear as much in Series 10 because he was at the National Railway Museum. Smudger is female, not male. Her real name is Samantha and is Rheneas' sister. So that Millie is not the only female narrow gauge engine, and also why Smudger shares the same design as Rheneas. Her personality has also changed from rough and reckless to very cheerful and a bit cheeky, so her personality isn't too similar to Stanley. The engine who fell off the old iron bridge was called Fletcher. If there can be another Rheneas called Jennings, then why not have another Scarlowy called Fletcher? 98462 and 87546 are based on NS 3700s. As a result, they're not only Dutch, but they're also twins. 87546 is currently on static display at the Spoorweg Museum in Utrecht, while 98462 has been scrapped. And with that, the second part of the video is done. Again, huge thank you to everyone who sent in headcanons. So now we move on to the big lists with I think up to 12 headcanons listed, kicking off with Darius. Thomas was an experimental Ginty E2 mix built in 1908. James was the actual shape of a Lancashire in Yorkshire 28 and got his extended running board after his crash in 1924. 98462 and 87546 are a B12 tender engine and a prototype C1 Atlantic, both built in 1902. Bertram was rebuilt to have a tender after he crashed on the Old Iron Bridge in 1922. Billy and Charlie were on the Wellsworth and Sodor Railway with two more engines like them. Oliver escaped scrap in 1962 with two coaches and towed. The third Sodor and Mainland box tank worked itself to death. Duke and Smudger work on the Ulfstead Estate Railway. Sir Topham Hatt's full family tree is longer than the width of the island of Sodor, which is about 50-60 miles. Rosie was bought in 1959 after she was withdrawn in 1958. Timothy was an older design of Thomas whose brakes failed and he crashed on the bridge in 1909. Gordon is a mix of a Gresley A1 and a Stanley Black 5 made in 1917. Next up is Ketley Apollon. All the engines on the North Western Railway are painted in their favourite colours. Aside from 98462 and 87546, they were painted black for being rude and annoying. While Edward pulls the Brendam Express most of the time, he also pulls local trains so he doesn't wear himself out because of all the constant high speeds, and pulls smaller finesse railway coaches on these local trains. If you'd like to hear more about the Brendam Express, then check out the previous headcanon video. Percy was built on October 22nd, 1933 and bought by Topham on May 23rd, 1934. The two red engines are called Jonathan and Ashton. Jonathan is a 28 with some modifications and Ashton is a B4. The Express has to be 5 to 7 coaches long. Local mainline trains have to be either 4 express coaches or 6 branch line coaches. And branch line locals have to be 3 branch line coaches, unless it's Thomas or Edward because of Annie and Clarabelle and Edward's coaches. These are the names for engine crews 1 to 6. Thomas, Joseph and Michael, Edward, Charlie and Sydney, Henry, Angel and Ted, Gordon, Paul and Anthony, James, Rob and Chris, and Percy, Caleb and Ernie. Duck is the one with diesel prejudice, not James. Like in Thomas 1 and Edward 2, Henry 3's NWR origins, 98462 dies in 1924 while trying to kill Gordon and Henry. And 87546 becomes even more evil and tries to finish what 98462 started. After that, he was sent away in 1926 and he destroys himself during the Barrow Blitz in 1942. As of 2023, there is no speed limit on the North Western Railway main line, 80 miles an hour on the Brendam branch, and 40 on other branch lines. The Peel Godred branch was never maintained well, and by privatisation, all passenger services closed down on the line. This is the order of all the mainline stations: Knapford, Knapford Junction, Crosby, Wellsworth, Marron, Cronk Abbey, Kildane, Kelsthorpe Road, the airport, Crovan's Gate, Ballyhoo and Vickerstown. Because of the beaching cuts, the Normanby branch, Hackenbeck, Cronk and Howin Lake were closed. This is how many express coaches each of the engines can pull. Thomas 3, Edward 5 used to be 7, Henry 13, Gordon 10, James 7, Percy 2, Toby none, Duck 3, Donald and Douglas 5, Oliver 2 and Emily none. Emily is a Sterling single. They used to work express services but were taken off the express in the early 1900s because of bad traction and speed with the heavy trains didn't help. And they weren't as good as other express engines at the time like Finesse K2s. They were demoted to local passenger services and replaced by C1 Atlantics, so Atlantics and singles hate each other. Next headcanons are from the Wise Old Owl Productions. The Stepney in the TV series isn't the real Stepney. He's another engine built in 1940 to help with commuter trains around Cumbria. In 1957 he was withdrawn and bought by Steelworks. And cab over wheels happened to Stepney, not 16 because 16 was already scrapped. Stepney was saved by Rusty in 1960 and came to Sodor to help run the Bluebell branch. It's Sodor's number 13, but like Duck and Oliver in the railway series, Sir Topham Hatt let him keep his original number. The Bluebell branch was bought by Sir Topham Hatt in 1961, was expanded into cement works in 1963 and a junction station to connect it with the Peel-Godred branch line. After double teething troubles, Derrick was sent back to the works and bought by the works to be the works diesel. The wishing tree is said to be cursed. When someone makes a wish upon it, their wish comes true, but there's always a catch, like Henry wanting to pull the express but forgetting how to pull coaches. In calling all engines, Tidmouth Sheds was expanded to 10 berths rather than 7. After the airport was built, Class 40 was given a second chance as he was needed to run the airport express trains, which have the red express coaches. Alice from Thomas and the Birthday Mail gets married to another woman in her adult life and Thomas and Rosie bring along the good luck package. After Tugs, Zip went to work at Percy's Harbour and became a lot better because of it. Connor and Sandy from All Engines Go are both canon and are narrow gauge. And after all that, we are now at the final comments. So last but certainly not least are headcanons from Kukak. Thomas and Bertie's race was a friendly one. It was organised by the North Western Railway and Sodor Roadways to see who could serve the area better. The Mid-Sodor Railway used to have a branch line to Ulfstead, and the Arlesdale Railway was later extended there too. Bolgy no longer dislikes the railways. Since he's a vegetable boss, they're not his competitors anymore. His current nemesis is a Tesco lorry called Bruce. The Arlesdale engines aren't clones of their basis. The Ravenglass and Eskdale closed down and its engines were sold to Sodor. After George caused yet another large accident, the Sodor Island Council decided to sell him. Only scrapyards wanted to buy him. Most engines didn't care for him, but Rusty convinced the Vicar of Wellsworth to save him. When George found out he was saved by a railway engine, he softened up to railways. George now lives at the Vicarage Orchard with Trevor and attends many fetes and galas. While most of the old coaches from Series 1 were scrapped, some were preserved and became Emily's coaches, and another one, Dexter, became a classroom. Some years after his arrival to the Skarloey Railway, Duke began to feel old. He decided to retire to the Ulfstead Estate Railway where the workload was lighter, and before he left he passed down his title of Duke to Peter Sam, which meant that Duke was now called by his real name, Bertram. Both are still commonly referred to by their most known names, but officially they are Bertram and Duke. When Diesel arrived at the cement works, he was very careless and Fergus had to abandon some of his work to clean up his messes. This made the manager think that Diesel was the better worker of the two, and when Fergus overheard him say he was a burden to the cement works, he volunteered to be sold to the Ulfstead Estate Railway. There he was frustrated with the Earl treating him like fragile machinery, and ran away, stumbling across the smelters in the process. He was found by Stephen and the Earl, who apologised for his treatment and told him the cement works wanted him back after Diesel was found out. Fergus accepted and returned and became Diesel's mentor, who is now a more mature and experienced engine. Diesel believes that City of Truro was the first engine to hit 100 miles an hour. The Sodor Steamworks is open to all engines and railways around the world, and international engines are often overhauled here. After their repairs end, they can work on the North Western Railway for a few months in exchange for getting a discount on the repairs. Some of these engines stay on Sodor and are purchased. Every year when the Caldy Fell Railway is closed for the winter, 2 of its engines spend time at the Earl's Museum at Ulfstead. The Caldy Fell manager is called the Tall Controller. Many of the hit era's narrow gauge stories actually happened on the Mid-Sodor Railway with different engines. Sir Handel as Duke, Scarlo and Reneus as Stuart and Falcon, Duncan as Smudger, stuff like that. The wharf was the harbour at ALLCROFT. And Diesel 10's real name is Vincent. Well, there we go. At long last, part 3 of Headcanons is completed. I've just counted out all the headcanons that were submitted, and there was a grand total of 88. Thank you to everyone who sent in headcanons, and also thank you for your patience with waiting with it for this video to come out, because I know it's been a long time coming. There is going to be a part 4, but however, this time I'm going to set a deadline for submitting headcanons to make sure that video comes out quicker than the previous 2 have done. The deadline I'm setting is the 31st of January 2024. I will only listen to comments that are submitted on this video and within the deadline, which again is 31st of January 2024. Well anyway, thank you for watching this video, thank you for being so patient waiting for it to come out, and I'll see you all later. Have a good one.